rolling out the red carpet, it shouldn't just be reserved for,
The
just the
highest role.
superintendent,
Yeah.
because it takes everybody to
a
make the
village.
school district work.
Hey there, this is Matthew Jennings with Peace Jar Extra Credit, and we are here today to talk about journey modeling and all the touch points along the way to help grow and retain your students, family, and staff. And I'm very lucky today to be joined by Molly from Rhodes Branding, so stick around. Molly, thank you so much for joining me today. This is awesome. We're going to talk about journey modeling. I'm excited about learning more about this. I know that you and Rhodes Branding are experts in this space, so I'm really looking forward to you imparting some knowledge today. But let's start with, tell everybody about yourself, some of your background, who you are, and a little bit about Rhodes Branding.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Molly McGowan Gorsuch. I'm the Director of Client Engagement with Rhodes Branding. Prior to that, I was 8 years in communications. I was the Public Information Officer for Henderson County Public Schools, a 23 school district in Henderson County, North Carolina. And so I transitioned into Rhodes Branding about August 2023.
Okay.
So I'm really excited to still be in the K-12 space. And what I'm really loving to do is knowing where, like you say, my peeps a lot, right?
Yeah.
Say my peeps are coming from, and using that background and that knowledge to say, here's where their needs are, and here's where K-12 marketing and branding can really support and lift up, and like rising tides lift all ships. So that's
awesome.
what we're excited to do.
That's really cool. And I actually appreciate that you feel the same way. We both came from public education, and now we work for really amazing companies that still support that. So I borrowed a term from Dan Thigpen, public education adjacent.
Yes.
Right. So we're still out there
Perfect.
supporting the mission of public education and students and families and staff and the communities that serves. Big proponents of public education. But we're just doing that in a different role now, which is kind of fun.
It is fun. It is fun. And the great thing too is like learning so much about all the different opportunities out there and the ways that we can plug in, like right now.
Like what we're doing right now, and giving back. I mean, this is awesome. So we're now able to support our fellow PIOs in such a new and unique way, which I think is really fun. So let's do this. Let's talk about journey modeling. It's not a topic that I have a depth of experience in, so I'm really excited to learn a little bit today. So for me and maybe everyone else out there watching, let's just start with, what is journey modeling and why is it important?
Sure. So people in communications, school PR, we know the term target audience. We know the importance of knowing who your audience is, right? So journey modeling essentially is taking the position of putting yourself in those people's positions, but not just looking at what they're doing in any given moment, thinking about what they're thinking, what's prompting them, what their motivations are for certain behaviors along their journeys with your company, with your brand, essentially. So you're evaluating their user experience. And ultimately knowing, when we talk about brand, it's not just your logo. It's not just your tagline. It is a lot of the user experience, those touch points, those very human touch points. So by journey modeling, you're able to name the questions they're pondering. You're able to see what it is they're thinking and driving them. Say, what are they doing? Are they going to your website? Where are they looking for information? And it takes you as a district, or you as a school, out of saying, oh, well, they should be doing this, or they should be looking. It doesn't matter in that regard. What you're thinking about in this moment is, where are they looking? What are they needing? So it's a really good exercise to kind of put yourself in their shoes and then help you pinpoint where you might have some friction points you can adjust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a good explanation, but could you give me maybe an example of what that might look like a little bit more specifically? Like, I'm thinking of maybe filling a role, like if somebody's looking for a teaching job.
Sure. Absolutely. So we say that every journey, the journey model will begin with a catalyst, right? And so if we think about which target audience are we looking at, if we're thinking about a teacher who is just coming out of school, so like that might be their trigger, right? They're looking for their first job. Others Another audience might be those who are more experienced teachers, but their trigger is they're leaving their current district or they're leaving their current role. That could be because they're moving, they're relocating, or they are unhappy with their current situation for whatever reason. Yeah. But so knowing that's where their start is, that's where their trigger, right? So then from there, okay, next they're going to be going into sort of a self-evaluation phase. What am I licensed to do? If they're looking to go into another state, like how does that licensure translate? What are the steps I need to do? So that goes from, okay, let's talk about where are they going to research that? Is it a State Department website? Is it their current HR department? And then moving along the lines of the next research, topic that they're doing is probably going to look at housing markets, right? So it's not just about necessarily what's in your district. It's what's in your sphere, and also kind of how can you own your employee value proposition and like it really share the good things about your regions. Yeah. It could be everything from, we have a really fantastic downtown, or we have an area that a lot of people of a certain age relocate to because they like we live in Western North Carolina. Yeah. People are going to want to come out here and go hiking and trails and all that. So that's a big draw for a lot of people. And you have the beach. Right. So it's taking into consideration, like, are those things that people are thinking about when they're moving? Absolutely. What's the housing market like? And then other things they're thinking about too, is like, so what does the district offer? Right. Okay. So when we talk about employee value proposition, we're thinking, yes, there's the benefits. There's your 401k, your salary, all of that. But so often, especially on a journey model exercise, you're realizing that some of the questions these individuals are asking may not be immediately available or easy to find, but they totally exist, right? Yeah. So like one district has a really strong DEI program, or like there's a community service element, or there's a very strong teacher support. Like anytime they have huge supports for growth in a career, right? Professional development. Yeah, and it's not just like your district professional development, because I think that's something that we talk about a lot in the education space, but it's also like what are the structures in place that you can brag about that are saying, hey, okay, so you want to pursue leadership roles? We have an academy for that. Or you want to get your national board certification. Here are the supports we have in place for that, or possible incentives. So things like that, like how can you say, not only come here, but here's why you want to stay here and grow your career here.
So that's awesome. My brain is going 1,000 miles an hour. So let's dig into that just a little bit deeper, then maybe another layer down. You have these things that make your community unique that might not necessarily be related to your district, like we named, the beach, or location, maybe a great downtown, or just a really up and coming, scene or community. Those aren't necessarily things you think about, like putting on your website or something. Would the suggestion be to start having some of those areas maybe more prominently featured somewhere, or through video series, or what? Talk to me a little bit about what districts might be able to do to lean into highlighting some of the things that are out of their control and outside of their actual sphere at the district level.
Absolutely. And I think what you as a district would want to highlight would really depend on what the result of that journey model exercise is, because what are those people actually looking for? Because if they don't care about, if the housing market sucks, obviously we're not going to talk about that. But if you find, that yes, your region is a huge draw, because X, Y, or Z, is there an opportunity to partner with a chamber of commerce? Do they have video that they would be happy to let you use? Can you incorporate or collaborate on some type of content or cross post, any sort of thing like that? A lot of workforce development groups are just eager to partner on that kind of venture, and it's just a matter of
makes sense
asking.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And something like a chamber of commerce, I can imagine, would just totally lean into that project, because you gaining a really great employee just is better for everybody in the whole city and in the economy itself. And so I can imagine that's a really great resource. I don't know. I can't name very many districts off the top of my head that are doing a really good job of highlighting their community at large and why you would want to come work for their community outside of just their district stuff. Like we have great benefits. We have great pay. We have a really good retirement. It seems so hyper-focused always on just what the district is offering, and they don't look maybe outside those walls as much. I know that when I've gone through superintendent search, we do, right, which is interesting. You know, when you're trying to lure a superintendent maybe across from another country or another state, you know, you're really out there talking about the value and the benefit of your community. But I don't see that happening at a level of, you know, for our maintenance and operations, or maybe our bus drivers, or even teachers.
Right. And you said, it's interesting you say that, because one of, you know, the local hospitals in our region, I know the person who does that kind of work and sets up these experiences for people to come and check out. So that's an opportunity too. Like if a touch point would be to showcase your school or your district. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if they're moving from another location, they're not going to be able to take a school tour. But that's an opportunity where perhaps you could provide a video and send that to a prospective candidate. But like you said, rolling out the red carpet, it shouldn't just be reserved for, you know, just the superintendent, because it takes everybody to make the school district work.
That's so cool. So let me see if I got like the kind of the touch point thing right? So an example would be that application process. That would be a touch point. Like, what does that look like? How are they interacting with that? Is it meeting the mark? The actual job interview itself. Mm-hmm. Even before that, we're talking our website. Like that's where they're gonna start doing some research on what is the district like and the website. Right. Social media channels. Yes,
and when you talk about website too, we have to remember that along that journey, they're not just looking at the district website. They're looking at third-party sites. They're looking at, so are you as a district owning your space there, or is someone else, you know, speaking for you, right? Are you using SEO to actually, you know, own that space? Yeah. And things like that just make a world of difference. Is your website coming up top? Or like, is there another city that is also named after you, but comes up first? I may or may not know about that. Yeah. But all those kind of things make a difference, because what you're trying to do is reduce the friction points along their journey to you, right? To make it smoother. And even like in the application process, yes, there are some things we can't change systematically, all in a broad stroke, but just making it easier where you can, like finding those elements where, all right, this maybe is the way we've always done it, but what's to say we can't switch it up a little bit, right? Or how are they receiving the information about their next steps in the application process? Is it just one giant dump of a list, or are there scheduled, automated, you know, like emails or saying, hey, we're so excited to have you come in.
Is it
personable, or maybe a mailer saying, hey, welcome to the area, or hey, we're excited to see you. Here's, just so you know, here's our address. And not that they can't Google it, but it's still a nice touch point. And it's like, oh, they thought of me, you know?
That's awesome. Yeah. Making it personal. So you've said a couple of things. I just want to make sure that there's some clarity out there too. Like, talk to me about the difference between touch point versus a friction point.
Sure. Well, I guess it's just the way that you're experiencing it, right? If it's the user experience. So along the journey, there are these points where they have an experience with your brand, which is your district, your school. And in that moment, is it an opportunity for you to reduce friction?
Yeah, is it a positive experience?
Right. And sometimes those touch points exist and the materials and the content exist to share it. It's just the action of actually doing it, because it's not something we've thought about before, right? It's like, oh, we've talked, you know, we've worked with HR departments before saying, you know, we have all this. We could provide them. This would be an awesome opportunity for us to do X, Y, and Z. So it's like they've got the stuff to do it. It's just thinking about it in a different way.
That makes sense. So then I imagine for retention and hiring, this could have pretty significant implications. Is that something you've seen personally and through Rhodes branding?
Yeah, that's something that we are definitely working on with districts, because ultimately through the journey, yes, you want them to say yes. You want them to then grow with your district. But ultimately when they retire, there's like a bonus stage, a bonus level where they can be advocates, and they can honestly be advocates before they even retire. And that's the main goal, right? Because word of mouth is a touch point along that journey. So they can circle back and be a word of mouth touch point on someone else's journey.
Yeah.
So all of that is key. And it's not just, kind of, I said this once in a presentation where it's like, you don't want to, as part of the onboarding process, then just drop them like a hot potato.
Okay.
Because you want
Which
them.
happens.
Yeah, it does.
Hey,
it does.
Here. Here's your desk.
Exactly. And it's, there are a lot of big corporate companies, and again, taking cues from them. Obviously, things that they do are going to be very different than what districts and public entities can do.
Yeah.
It's like we can't really send a wine basket to your new teacher, but you can make them feel welcome in certain other ways. You can make those touch points a little bit clearer.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, what we're hearing is the support might be there, but sometimes laying out those expectations, like this is what comes next, and this is how I will be communicated with next.
Okay.
And this is who I need to contact if I have questions. So just eliminating the ambiguity is a lot of reducing that friction.
Which is awesome. One thing that kind of comes to mind is in like reducing that friction and looking at these different phases of touch points that you have. I can imagine it could really make your processes more effective and streamlined. So you're able to like kind of reduce some of the, maybe it's clunky and that's a friction point. Maybe it's a friction point because it's clunky. It doesn't matter which is one, but going through and looking at these processes and cleaning them up and making them more personable, I think probably it sounds like it would just make the whole thing run smoother.
Absolutely. And I mean, we are not a tech company, but we also are friends with lots of folks who are, and there are solutions out there that can make that easier on the back end. Or sometimes it's just after an audit that, that we're doing, we're saying, hey, you can do this, that, and the other. And it's something you can do internally that's in like, oh, we can change this process. And I realized after having worked in a school district that changing processes takes time. But I think what a lot of, districts and especially departments like human resources can see is like it actually saves their employees time. It saves your strapped resources in your human capital a lot of time in having to redo certain things, ultimately winning you extra time in the day and money essentially.
That makes sense. Well, thank you for walking me through kind of what the touch points are, friction points. This next question is probably a very obvious answer, but then who are we talking about in relation to this journey modeling experience? Who are our customers?
So it kind of depends on what your measurable objectives are going to be, right? Okay. So in this scenario, we would say our target audiences would be prospective employees. Okay. If you're looking at like an enrollment campaign or enrollment journey model, you're looking at the students, but also the families and the parents, because for younger kids, it's the parents who are going to be doing a lot of the research, obviously, and making the decisions and the buying power. But so it's we know that in schools in K-12, it's your parents, guardians, students, teachers, staff. But then also, keeping in mind that other organizations and community partners can be key players in helping set you up for success along those touch points and reaching those target audiences. That's
great. So it sounds to me like it really depends. Like if your district is seeing a decline in enrollment, like so many districts are across the country, for various reasons, we that's a whole nother video, but and that's going to be your target. You're going to focus on that. Then you're looking at the families and the parents and the guardians, and you don't want to leave students out of that equation, like you had said, because it's so critical for them to be able to see themselves joining that school or seeing the spirit and the culture of that school district shine through social media, or maybe it's YouTube or whatever that is. So I kind of have a better picture now of it. Really depends on where your focus is. And if that's in HR and you're going to focus on trying to fill some of those open positions, that's using journey modeling to look at your, those touch points, that end user customer experience every step of the way. But even going back before that, I really like what we said about also focusing on what makes your community unique. outside of just the walls of your district or outside of just the school buildings themselves. So I really appreciate that. I've taken away quite a bit here already, which is great.
And I have another more specific example if you want to think more departmental, again, kind of like HR, but we've been working and talking to CTE departments, career and technical education. And, you know, if they're trying to drill down into where's our message maybe missing the mark with students who are signing up for classes, how do we make sure they become completers along the pathway, getting the information to them, but also getting it to their parents seems to be sort of the disconnect. So following along that journey for them is like sometimes maybe they're noticing it, the messaging and the communications is starting in 8th grade. Yeah. Maybe it needs to start in 6th grade. Maybe there are touch points that exist like open houses that you already have in place in your district that you could utilize and just, you know, tweak the messaging or drop in some additional messaging and targeted marketing that will reach the audiences that you're looking at. So again, like that's a hyper focused target audience, but that's what the journey modeling exercise helps us, because like you build personas of who you're trying to really talk to. And if it's like a 6th grader, where are they going to be getting their information? Probably Instagram, right? Yeah. So if your CTE department has an Instagram account, put some cool stuff on there and then echo that same message to the families, but in a different package.
That's so cool. I love that. And I thank you for sharing that example as well. That really drives home, you know, for me in a previous district that I was in, there were, as we went through the pandemic and the technology came on board and, you know, all of a sudden everybody has a device and parents really struggled at first with getting up to speed with, what apps do they need? How do I get them logged into this? How do I get them on their grades over here? And so it in a way, do you ever find that you find a friction point and then like use that as the catalyst for, okay, we're having an issue with maybe like you had referenced parents knowing how to lean into the technology they're going to have in 8th grade. Do you find like, okay, that's a friction point. Let me go back and use journey modeling to see what that experience is and maybe try to head that off at the pass in 6th grade, for example, and start doing that talk at the open houses or before they matriculate into middle school, you're going out and talking to the families about this is what you can expect. This is where you can see support. This is where you can go for questions. Yeah.
And I can't say it enough, but again, communications folks know this, going to the source to find out your information, along with journey modeling, like in this example specifically too, you're going to want to talk to those kind of parents. You're not going to want to make assumptions. Mm-hmm. So anytime we'll be doing a journey model exercise, a lot of times that involves some focus groups. That might involve some surveying on the front end because we want to kind of get a better idea of the persona we're building in order to then follow them on their journey. So like all of that research is key too.
I love that. And so surveys, that work that you're doing on the front end to gather data collection takes me to my next question, which is, what data should we be looking at?
Well, again, depends on what your objectives are.
Cool.
But so if we're saying enrollment, right? Yeah. Obviously you want to know what your enrollment numbers are, historic, but then also, it would be nice to know, are you losing students at certain grade levels? Okay. What the data on either new schools popping up in the area, either virtual, in-person options, also just the populations, because sometimes some districts may be losing students, but it's also because people are like actually leaving the community, and it's not just the students leaving, it's a lot of people leaving. So, population data. And again, if you're looking for like CTE, a lot of times what we're looking at is, we're looking at the industries in the region, and does the programming in the district match up with that? Ideally, it should. Yeah. But also, what are the opportunities there? What are the credentialing numbers? How many of these students are just participants, maybe just getting one credit in CTE, and then how many are actually going on to completion? So, like using some of that data, and then also partnering that with the qualitative data research that you're going to be doing with maybe graduated students or parents of students. It all ties together into building those personas and journey models.
That's really great. I'm going to share some of this. I was talking to a district just yesterday, and they're finding that they lose kids in middle school. So after 6th grade, they disappear for a couple of years, but they come back to high school.
Right.
So really good opportunity for them to really dig into that data, figure out that why, figure out those friction points, use some journey modeling, and maybe they can help some of the disappearance in middle school.
Right. And that's an opportunity to see what are they experiencing in those few years leading up to when they're dropping off. And then what are the parents saying about that experience? It could be that the kids are having a fabulous experience, but the parents, the engagement is so poor that they don't want their child in that, you know? It's like there's all these possibilities, but you're not going to know until...
Yeah. And it goes back to something you said earlier, which is also just owning your space out there and making sure you own beyond just your website and your social media feeds. And you're able to help get the messaging out there in a way that when people are in the supermarket talking about your district or they're out in the parking lot, your messaging is the messaging they're able to share. And it's not just whatever's bubbling up and maybe in the rumor mill. And this goes back to something too that in a previous episode of Peace Jar Extra Credit with Sheena Cooper, she's really amazing out of Durham Public Schools. And we did a whole video on just marketing and branding and owning your messaging. And we shared some really great tips and tactics there. So if you're finding, like in that example, middle school, if you're finding in some of that exploration, that data gathering, that you're not owning the message at the middle school level, that maybe there's messaging out there that's not flattering or it's not very complimentary. And that's why your families are leaving. Using some of those strategies that we talked about in that branding video might help out. And then looking through and really digging into this journey modeling experience could be really good help. Because
then you can see where you need to be delivering that messaging.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
exactly.
Awesome. Well, this has been a really fantastic conversation. Let's say somebody's out there and they're like, well, I want to do a little deeper dive on this. Rhodes Branding can help with that, right?
Correct.
Cool.
Yes. We are based in South Carolina, but we work nationally. We have clients from California to South Carolina, North Carolina. I say North Carolina because I live here in North Carolina, but from coast to coast. But yeah, what we love getting into that data. And a lot of the times, I mean, you remember, it's so many communication professionals are tasked with like the crisis comms, the everyday fires they have to put out. So dedicating some time to that research aspect isn't always feasible. Yeah. So that's sometimes where and sometimes it's helpful to have a third party to come out and share and say things that maybe you as a district can't say. So we like to get in there, help facilitate. We'll host those focus groups, the surveys, all of that information. Like, I love taking people through the journey model experience and I'll share, we just recently did this out in California, and just seeing they're the professionals in their realm, right? They're the ones who know their target audience. Yeah. It's just a matter of getting them to think about it in a different way. And so seeing the light bulb click and be like, oh, we've got this. We should be giving it to them at this touch point. And I was like, yes.
That's so cool.
So it's so cool because they own it and they own the experience, and there's so much buy-in, and yeah, I'm jazzed.
That's great. So if you're curious about this and not totally sure that you can tackle this on your own, there is professional help. So we'll link to Rhodes Branding in the description. Feel free to reach out. You can connect with Molly as well and talk through what that might mean and what that might look like. And I know that we're always happy to answer any questions. So don't hesitate to get in there and put, comments. We'll get in there. We'll interact with you. So if you like this, be sure to like, share, comment, and follow for more. We're going to keep bringing you more content here on Peace Jar Extra Credit. Molly, I can't thank you enough for being here today and just talking through this topic. I think it is a critical topic that partners very well with other things that we're doing in communications around the marketing and the branding, and just the comms role is so broad. But this is such a niche focus to really hone in on your customer experience and all those different levels of customers. I can't thank you enough for sharing today.
Thank you. I've loved the experience. It's great seeing you as always.
That's awesome. All right, well, stay tuned. We got more coming your way. That's it for now. We'll see you later.